Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. I wanted to talk quickly about a new unit that GW has shown us the warscroll for, and that is Ionus Cryptborn. Now, this is not a Seraphon unit, but I think it has some relevance for us in Seraphon. So, quickly, this unit is only 400 points. Now, that's expensive, but what that does is that fits under the ally cap. You're only allowed to take a unit for 400 points as an ally in your army. Unless there's some other rules that break it, like Gotrek or Kronspine or Mega Gargant. Those are all exceptions. But generally, 400 points or less is what you can take for an ally. So he hits that mark perfectly, 400 points. So I asked myself, is this worth taking in a Seraphon army? And I think the answer is yes. It doesn't do anything amazingly well, but it does a lot pretty good. And so with that in mind, I think it kind of supplements some of our armies pretty well. So let's look at this war scroll here. Let me zoom in a little bit here. All right, so you see it's wounds. It's got 16 wounds, 3-up save. In my mind, I'm looking at this going, okay, I've got a hero that's expensive. I'm already comparing it to like a Carnosaur or a Stegodon Chief, are, supposedly big monster heroes with a mount that are supposed to be fearsome and dangerous. Unfortunately, this one here ends up comparing pretty well to all of those. I've always wanted the Carnosaur to be super scary. I don't care if I have to pay 400 points for it. I want it to be scarier than what it is. So is Cryptborn worth it at 400 points? He's got 16 wounds, which is great. A 3-up save, which is fantastic. Why can't our Carnosaurs and Stegodons have a 3-up save? Its movement is great, 14 inches, and it flies. All of those things added together are great. Good movement, good save, good wounds. But that doesn't save a unit all on its own. When you look at its melee attacks, it's nothing to write home either. It's good, and it can kill some small stuff. It can kill some screens. It can go into another hero and kill it. It can kill things, but it's not going to blow up an entire army. I do like that the melee weapon is called the Soul Breaker, and it has 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 rend, 2 damage. I think he's breaking it. He's breaking his own heart when he's hitting with that thing. How weak it is. That's just like this. I mean, isn't that this standard like Stormcast hero melee profile? There's literally nothing special about that. Anyway, that's beside the point. I think where this unit gets interesting is all of his extra abilities. So if it was just the melee profile, I think we could look past it. But it has enough interesting special abilities baked into its war scroll that I think it becomes interesting in some Seraphon lists. So it has this melee attack, or this missile attack, this Spirit Scouring Flames. So there's 9 attacks here. 3s, -2 rend, 1 damage. Decent attack here. But what it does is if any of them actually wound the unit that you're shooting, they're going to take continuing flame damage. They're set on fire. And so this becomes really cool because we have lots of ways to plink mortal wounds if we're talking about Starborne. This is just another way to do that. And so you can see the ability here if you want to read that out. But what you have is you have 9 attacks, and if they go through, you're going to start proccing D3 mortal wounds every hero phase on whatever you do damage to. So you can focus fire on one unit if you really need that D3 mortal wounds in your hero phase and in the next hero phase. Or you can spread this out. You can hit 9 different units if you're in range, and maybe you'll set all of them ablaze. So it can be pretty interesting that way. Gives you some flexibility. Definitely gives you a way to spread out some mortal wounds. So that's pretty nice. This also stops healing on units. So if you have caused them to become set on fire, if they heal themselves in any way, they're not healed. All that they're doing is they're just healing their soul burned, their sunburn here. So that allows them to heal that, but it doesn't heal them regularly. So a very interesting way to stop some healing that units have. So I already got two good abilities. So imagine you're in Starborne. You're already doing a ton of mortal wounds in the hero phase. You're hitting things all over the board with all these spells, with endless spells. You're doing lots of mortal wounds. And then you're moving this guy up and you're shooting again. And now you're hitting for more mortal wounds in each of the next hero phases. It's just something that just adds on top of all of that. Another great ability on his War Scroll is this Draconic Horror. Enemy units cannot receive Rally and Inspiring Presence commands while they're within 12 inches of this unit. This is like a better... what's that endless spell? There's an endless spell that does this. But now, you can't unbind this guy from the board. You got to go kill him. And this is a huge aura. He's on a pretty big base. And so I think it's 100 millimeters. Let's see. Yeah. And so you're already adding that plus 12 inches in a bubble all the way around him. You're covering a big percentage. And that stops Rally and Inspiring Presence. So good for some of the armies that are out there right now that really rely on Inspiring Presence all the time and bringing things back via Rally. So I really like that ability. That's a great one. -1 to attacks for him just makes him a little bit tougher, which can be really good against some units. This one here, the Arch Relictor. This is a pretty interesting ability here. In your hero phase, this unit can chant 2 prayers that it knows instead of 1. At the start of your hero phase, you can either say that it's going to chant 1 or 2. If you only do 1, it automatically goes off on a roll of 6, and you can't chant anymore. Or you can just make 2 chant rolls as normal. So that's pretty cool because you can guarantee his prayer going off. There is no roll. You just say it's automatically 6. Well, that comes in with some interesting things. I'll talk about that here in a second. So that, in and of itself, anytime you can guarantee something in this game, that's really good. We'll come back to this ability here in a second. So what I'm thinking here is either I'm going to be chanting his prayer on his War Scroll or the ones that are generic. Smite and Bless. Bless is good if you need to give something a 6-up ward. Automatically making that happen is nice. But Smite is also interesting for this unit. If you're not in range for his next spell, which we'll talk about here in a second, Smite is a good one. Because on a 6, you're going to do D3 mortal wounds to a priest within 48 inches. Normally, it's only 1 mortal wound on a roll of 2 up, but if you roll a 6, which he would automatically make it that, it's D3. So what are we talking? We're just talking more mortal wounds on the heroes the opponent has. So if they have a priest, we can automatically make it D3 mortal wounds onto him within 48 inches, which is basically the whole board. So a very interesting way to guarantee that Smite always hits hard. I like that. I like that a lot. His other prayer is Lightning Tempest. And guess what it allows us to do? Mortal wounds. So it's a prayer that has an answer value of 3. That's a great cast. You want your prayers to go off on 3s. And a range of 18. If answer, pick 1 enemy unit within range. They're struck by lightning. They suffer D3 mortal wounds. Then on a 1 or 2, it's over. But on a 3, you pick another unit within 3, and they suffer D3 mortal wounds. And then you keep going. As long as you keep rolling 3s, a unit within 3 inches takes D3 mortal wounds until you've run out of units within 3 that you can keep chaining it to, or you roll a 1 or 2. So just another fantastic way to cause some mortal wounds. So we're talking about multiple ways that we can add mortal wounds to our output with this character. And we don't have to take anything else. This is all just baked in on his War Scroll. So I really like this in the addition of Starborne, because that's kind of the theme that you're going with there. And already in Starborne, you're looking at, some extra points that you're going to put into some type of unit that can go cause trouble on the board while you sit back and cast your spells. So he might fill that role. I'll talk about that in a second. His other ability that I think is quite good is at the start of the enemy hero phase, you can pick 1 endless spell or invocation within 12 inches of this unit and roll a dice. On a 2-up, that endless spell is dispelled or that invocation is banished. So you can get rid of some endless spells or invocations, which is very good, because those are hard to get rid of most of the time. In fact, some armies depend on no one being able to remove those to get their battle tactic or grand strategy. So here, you don't have to give up anything for it. You just get to do it on a dice roll of 2 up. So very good at being able to get rid of endless spells, and you've still got your chance to cast your prayers later, chant your prayers later. So a fantastic War Scroll. I like it a lot. The damage isn't crazy with them, But what he does is he offers a lot of flexibility with how you use him. You can do mortal wounds. You can do some damage when you need to. He's decently tough. You can send him into combat against things that might have, extra attacks, and you're reducing that down. And so a solid overall unit. I really like him here. He's a monster. What else is there to love about him? 400 points. So I think it fits into that role of Starborne where you're taking... For a while, we were taking Kronspines as kind of that hammer unit. Some people have pivoted over to Gotrek at 480. I've seen a few of you taking a Mega Gargant as an ally, kind of filling that same role, or just filling up with a bunch of bodies. I think that's also a pretty good idea. But I think this can help support that mortal wound output that Starborne is looking for. Or if you want to put him into Coalesced, maybe he could offer some range damage with his sunburn ability and then the smite and lightning tempest there. I think those are all great abilities that he's got there. So very interesting. I think we will be picking this guy up because my son runs a lot of Stormcast, so it makes sense to grab this guy. And maybe I can magnetize that rider and throw an old blood on that saddle. Look at that saddle. Let's see. Hopefully you can see that there. I need to see a comparison, but I'm pretty sure an old blood would fit perfectly into that saddle. So we can make this a little bit more Seraphon themed to fit into our army if I ally it. So interesting unit. I kind of like it, and I'm interested to see how it plays as an ally for Seraphon. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time.